Hey, welcome listeners and viewers. I have a real treat for you today on the Push to Pass podcast as we continue to review the business of motor racing. And as I've mentioned in previous episodes, the unique experience that's possible in motorsports really trumps other programs that you might be supporting or using as a hospitality platform. Racing is not like having a box at the baseball game, friends. And I love baseball. Our goal is to optimize the experience, and it really must be intentional. And we really have the best event executive in racing and in sports to speak with us about that. It's a pleasure really to introduce you to Laura Cooper Arnold, who is the executive vice president of sports entertainment travel in Indianapolis, and really just a wide ranging event executive, incredible experiences, whatever you might need. And I met Coop during my first IndyCar sponsorship a number of years ago. So Laura, welcome to the show. And I tell you what, let's get off this way. Tell us kind of about your background and experience in providing some of these premium services in motorsports and other sports that you've worked on before.
Absolutely. First off, thanks for having me, JP. Great to see you.
Sure.
My foray into motorsports started a little bit different than most people's. I started slinging drinks in 1998 at Seepkins Resort, and I think that's probably where my client services started. So with just exceptional people around me there in Elkhart Lake, I was able to meet what became my next round of bosses, Peter and Mary Lynn Murphy and Newman Haas Racing. And I started in hospitality, technically started cooking for the teams, the sponsors, owners, drivers, famous owners such as Carl Haas, Paul Newman. And those 6 years of experience really built the foundation of my customer service, client servicing in motorsports, but not just motorsports, really all sports. So moving on beyond Newman Haas, started an event planning company and was able to help certain clients back in the Team Cool Green days work on some of their other motor racing programs, because I had that background foundation of knowing how to take care of sponsors from the very bottom level up, and then also knowing just the different tracks, the cities that we go to, how these sponsors want to be entertained. And that really kickstarted my career, more specifically in client services, but having that hospitality background. Fast forward, I throw in a little bit of track promotions. I work for Andretti Sports Marketing while continuing to help their auto sports program into Global Rallycross, which was a really amazing experience. Got to travel around the world with X Games, learn a different motorsports forum, how it entertains sponsors in a different kind of motorsports. And all while I was doing this in the off-season in motorsports, I was very fortunate to get to work for Sports Entertainment Travel, with whom I work full-time for today, in specifically the college football scene, helping travel large groups of fans to football. So take out motorsport racing, insert football, and a lot of the basics are all elementary and very similar. We've been able to have a few of our own motorsports programs now that I've been at Sports Entertainment Travel, and continue to service some of the clients I've had over the years. And so I feel like I have a little bit of everything from all the different departments, and I really understand the scope from the track promoter to the owner to the customers to the drivers. And that's where I am today.
As you went into that experience, I was tracking this that really resonated with me, and that is the fact that you go to these venues, and an Indianapolis Motor Speedway is totally different than Laguna Seca. And so
Absolutely.
every time you go to a location, it presents its own challenges, opportunities, and things that you really want to leverage to make that experience fantastic for the partner, for the sponsors that show up. Let's dive in with this first question. So what do the best racing partners do to activate based on your experience in working with them? Like, what are the best practices, if you could narrow it down to a few?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first practice is identifying who are going to be the people you're entertaining. And it doesn't have to be just a customer. Over the years, I've had sponsors that use this as employees, to reward employees. I've had people that use it, yes, specifically for customers. I've had people use this for sweepstakes winners. as programs. Even back in the day, I was fortunate to work on a program called Motivation with Motorola, where they actually rewarded the franchise owners of small cell phone stores, when that was back in the day really big, to come to those races. So they were sort of customers, sort of employees, maybe distribution manufacturers, but the best people were able to identify at the beginning of the season which races they were going to, which made the most sense for the markets of the companies, of who they were entertaining. And maybe they divided it up. Maybe it was the Indy 500, they're bringing their top 100 customers. And then maybe they go down the end of the season and they're bringing their top 20 employees. So those that can identify who they are entertaining well in advance of the season, then they can take that whole schedule and decide the best way to entertain, because each of those people should be entertained differently.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Because in many cases, it's the first time they've ever shown up to a racetrack. And if they think,
Absolutely.
for example, like on the scheduling part, remember at Indianapolis, you have a guy, well-placed executive, very senior level, and he expects to show up at the Indy 500 30 minutes before the race starts. Like
yeah, right.
that kind of unaware, it's not their fault necessarily, but at all, frankly, it's our job to make sure that they're fully kind of almost educated about things before they go in there. So maybe that's one of my things of what are the mistakes that you've seen, but what mistakes do people make not to fully optimize this spend that they're making?
The biggest mistake is not getting information out to people early enough to get those invites and getting the correct people at the track. So and this is in any sport that we do. Same thing if I'm working a college football donor weekend, they want to get those big time donors, but the sooner they get the information out there, the better type of donors that they're going to have at a football game. So it's very similar in a lot of sports. And that is, and again, customers, it's your employees, people have to make travel arrangements, people have families. How are you going to optimize the best weekend? They might say, oh, I could come for a few hours on race day. Well, is that really worth the spend that you just made if they're going to miss the grid walk? Well, do they even know what the grid walk is to explain them that? So that's, very specific. And I think that's the number one mistake made, is not planning early enough.
Yeah, 100%. You're holding your cards, waiting for that big CEO to come in there, and you're not able to communicate with them in advance. You're scurrying around, and to your point, they're not going to get the full experience that the sponsor may want them to get, right? So you would be better off by having senior managers, maybe, or different folks that you can get far enough in advance, and you're going to wow them if that happens, right?
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. And I think that another key, or maybe pro tip, if you will, the gatekeepers of the world. You need to adhere to the gatekeepers of the world, whether that is, someone's executive assistant. Those people become your best friends. They help you with the information of when those executives are showing up or not. They can make sure that other people are showing up or reaching out to sales teams. They are your best friends, and those are the gatekeepers.
So embrace that relationship with the assistants and those others that can help get you the information that you need to do it well. Yeah.
Yep.
So in a lot of cases, I'm speaking with a couple of sponsors that have never done this before, so they may be coming to a large event or small, and it could be the first time. Do you have advice? We covered a couple of these things already, but some advice for someone that's maybe sponsoring for the first time, or maybe they're even doing a one-off race. Say, hey, we're in your location and we're in Texas and we're bringing a Texas party to you. What's the first steps other than calling you, right? What's the other thing they should be thinking about?
Yeah, I think that always the first step is having enough time to educate them as well, whether it's getting on the phone with them, who are the ones then deciding who they're bringing. So you need to definitely identify a budget, right? Because sky's the limit. So when you just said, oh, the CEO thinks he can get there within 30 minutes before the green flag, I can make that happen.
You could. Yeah, that's right.
I can. But it's a spend, it's an ask. You need someone with an experience that knows enough about every specific track on how to make that happen. So that's a big thing there is what are your budget limitations? What are they willing to spend? What is, you really want to find out what their return on investment is. How are they going to rate if this was successful? I think that might be one of the hardest things about some of the racing programs is how are you rating what the return on investment is? And some teams do it fantastic and they have ways to identify that. Some sponsors do a fantastic job at that.
I think you're right. There are people that will call that, hey, I'm not doing motor racing because we got burned on it. They could probably say the same thing about television or about their radio ad program, about their direct sales program. If you are not planned, if you're not in advance, if you're not doing your due diligence, leveraging your consulting team that's working with you to get their best practices and apply their skills, then I don't care what you're doing. It will not be as successful as it could be if you leveraged all the assets you've got in place.
Correct. Yeah. And there are generally more assets available than you might even think. And there's assets that teams and good sponsorship, good client service teams can create. There's a lot of really, and so say they don't have a budget, there's a lot of experiences that can be created with very little to no money, but you need to have the right team in place that understands how to do that or how they can leverage, say, their relationships with their promoters, or in the football world, their relationships with the athletic departments of the schools you're going to visit. How can you just call that friend of yours and be like, can you do a tour for us that costs nothing? And then you're leaving a lasting impression that you went the extra mile, and they're going to see something no one else can see.
The experience of taking people into the paddock and having them like touch the tires, the difference between the soft tires and the hard compounds, just things like that will blow people's minds. And that costs no money. But Correct. You got to have a person, yes, right, to get you access to that. If not, they're standing behind the stanchion just kind of wondering what's happening. And it's our job to make that experience really kind of come alive for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Laura, tell us about how someone might connect with you to kind of go through some of these things and utilize some of your experiences. Tell us about how folks can reach out to you if they might need and have some questions.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple different ways. The easiest way is my email at SET, which is Laura, Laura at setravel.co. Also, from my back years, to see all the experiences, all the different sporting facilities I've been to, cooperconsultingevents.com has a really nice list of that. And with that, I think the one thing I always like to call out is that there's just a lot of basics that you'd want in your client service team. I was very fortunate. I just got back early this morning from IMEX, which is the largest hospitality convention in the world, where all the major hotel franchises are there, and you basically get to speed date for 2 to 3 days all of these hotel salespeople. And then I have that more wealth of information of these people. So when a client comes to us and says, hey, Coop, we want to take this group to, let's say, the Indy 500, or a private corporate that we can build for you. We have those contacts, not just with the local hotels, but with our national reps. And it's just constant education on the people that you choose to host your programs. But I also think it's important that people know you don't have to have full-time staff. There are people out there that, us at SET, friends and colleagues of mine that can be connected to when you're just kind of dipping your toes.
Yep, absolutely. I tell you what we'll do. I'll put that contact information. We'll link that into the show notes and attach it to the videos. So I'm so grateful. It's great to be with you. Thanks so much for lending some of your expertise today. I'm grateful for it.
Absolutely. Thanks, JP.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is Laura Cooper Arnold. I'm JP Murray with the Push to Pass podcast. Look forward to visiting with you next week. See you soon. Bye-bye.